Hello, and welcome to Sheer Fucking Hubris, a podcast started by three buddies, three Star Trek fans who each week watch some Star Trek and then proceed to talk about it on this little show.
Mm.
I am Joe Bob. I am joined with tonight by Biblio Warden
Heyo.
and Mr. Willie.
Hello.
And this week's a little different. We took a break. We just finished up Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Strange New World Season 1, and Star Trek Picard Season 2, and decided to go back and pick up some classic Trek episodes. Some that I'd seen and Warden had seen, some that Willie might not have seen as much of. So we picked 3 episodes, technically 4 because we picked 1 2-parter, but we'll call them 3, from Voyager, Enterprise, and Deep Space Nine. And those 3 episodes were from Deep Space Nine, Trials and Tribulations, from Voyager, Year of Hell, and from Enterprise, Borderlands. Well, gentlemen, what you guys think in general? Well, did you like the kind of format that we chose this week?
It was fun. I liked it.
I liked it, and I actually hadn't seen any of those episodes. This was my first run through all of them.
Okay, well we'll definitely have to get your reactions to them, Willie.
The Enterprise stuff was new to me too. I've only seen like the first season and a half of that, so it was yeah, I enjoyed that.
Well, let's start with Enterprise then. So I picked 2 of the episodes this week, and Warden picked 1 of them. So the first episode I picked was the Enterprise episode Borderlands, which is technically a 3-parter, or the beginning of a 3-part arc. Enterprise did a lot of 2 and 3-part arcs, and this one is the begins the arc that has to do with the augments.
Mhm.
And the reason I picked this one was because I thought it was a pretty decent Enterprise episode, but it touches a few different subjects that we've talked about while we're watching Strange New Worlds, Discovery, Picard. So I wanted you guys to get to see a little bit more of the Orions up to their no good tricks with their slave markets.
Mhm.
And you know, I felt like we really need to see another Soong. And of course, I knew that Willie would love that because he and Warden love how everybody looks like their grandfather.
Yeah.
And I felt like we really need to redeem the name after Picard season 2 because that
Brent
Soong was
Spiner. Brent
not
Spiner is the thread of this tapestry that if you pull it, it all falls apart.
Indeed.
indeed. But I also thought that this was interesting because it kind of links to Willie, you had asked the question during the Picard season 2 discussion, I think it was you, why is he a geneticist? And Soong was into cybernetics. And this kind of shows you why in canon it makes sense. And it makes sense that he would be interested in the Project Khan. So
Yep.
I'm
I owe Glenn a heartfelt apology on that one. Not too heartfelt, but mediocre.
half-assed, maybe.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go through. I'm going to take a little bit different format. I'm not going to go through and do a full recap of these episodes because most people, I'm sure, have already seen them. They're classic Star Trek episodes. I told you guys why I picked this one, and I'm gonna start with Warden. Warden. So, what were your thoughts on this episode? What did you like about it? Or first of all, did you like it? I guess. And,
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's weird because I kind of got sidetracked back in the day. I didn't stop watching Enterprise for like any particular reason other than just like it seemed like the world lost track of Enterprise. It kept changing when and where it was on, and so I just didn't miss it. So it was actually really cool. It seems like it's a shame that that show kind of petered out, because it seems like, I mean, season 4, just because we also on the side watched another 3 episode arc, just for giggles. It seems like it was a solid season. But yeah, I thought it was really fun. Got to see Brent Spiner chewing the scenery like he so often does when he's not being Data, and even when he's Data, he's very often stealing the show. So that's always fun, and yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
Got a guest appearance from a maybe a Martok ancestor.
That's right.
Got to see the Big Show.
Doing what the Big Show does. Overacting.
I hope you sell for more than my last wife. Yeah,
It's too bad he didn't powerbomb a slave when they were trying to run away.
the
That's the
jackknife
only
power.
thing they missed.
No, he wasn't the power bomb. He was the choke slam.
That's right. He was he was the power bomb, right? No, you're right. He
No.
was a
Kevin
choke
Nash
slam.
was
Kevin
the
Nash was the
power
power
bomb.
bomb.
Oh, 90s WCW.
But now that wasn't Big Show. That was the Giant, right?
Well, he was the
That
giant,
was
and he
he had
became
to
Big Show in WWE, right?
right because WCW owned the Giant name. I'm assuming a lot of people's names had to change, like Razor Ramon and Scott Hall.
Maybe. I don't know. A lot of names did change, but not all of them. So
That's
I don't
true.
know how those contracts work. I'm really glad we're talking about Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think of the augments themselves?
Who are you talking to?
The both of you.
Um, I I thought I actually wound up watching all 3 parts of this arc because
Mhm.
I thought they were pretty solid
Good.
episodes.
Mhm.
Notwithstanding the fact that we got a little fast and loose with faster than light combat, but I mean, why did we even? I don't know. I just remember thinking this, like, what's the point of going to warp if you're just going to fight each other? Like, drop out of warp and fight each other, and then cheese it, when you need to. But anyway. Uh, but I thought the augments were I thought they were pretty well portrayed. I mean, obviously you could tell that they were a little unhinged, you know.
Nobody
Um,
genetically engineered a seamstress, apparently.
no, no, but
Indeed.
I will say it definitely looked like what I would have, if you took Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan and then remade it during the Enterprise era with costume design. I
Hmm.
felt like it was pretty close. They stuck pretty true. Um, if you watch the whole 3 parts of the arc in the third part, it basically addresses like their unchecked aggression and all that stuff, which was
Mhm.
very Khan-esque, right? Or
Hmm.
very Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan.
And I will
Um,
say Sung maybe it comes off a little better after you watch the full 3 parts.
Yeah.
yeah, he does.
Because in the first episode, Borderlands, he's a pure dick. I mean, that's
Oh
his
yeah,
character.
total dick. Yeah,
But he is trying to sort of to fix that strain of aggression, and you can see him losing control over the situation, and him realizing that it's spiraling out of control.
right.
Oh,
And he actually had a somewhat of a redemptive arc there at the end. And then, as you pointed out, in like the closing scene, that's when he says, augments was definitely the wrong way to go, but cybernetics,
Yep.
maybe that's the direction. So, like I said, I owe Glenn an apology because now it actually made more sense why, I don't know, original Soong, we'll call him Soong 1.0, was so into genetic modification, and then along the way he became Soong 1.1, who wanted to go to cybernetics, and then
Yeah.
we got to data. You the Orion stuff was pretty. I hadn't had much exposure to the Orions until the Emerald Chain and Discovery,
Hmm.
Hmm.
uh, and that made me feel at least a little bit more like they at least tried to stick to canon, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, they've
Now,
always been
granted,
stable.
there was 1,000 years in between
Hmm.
this little bit of canon and that bit of Star Trek, but overall, I thought it was good. I enjoyed the episodes. Um, I that was the first episode of Enterprise I'd ever seen. I don't know what
Oh
was going
wow.
on in my life during Enterprise, but I didn't watch any of it. Or
I know
maybe I
what was
watched it.
going on.
ma-
Same thing was going on in my life. You got more interested in chasing tail than watching Star Trek.
Maybe so, or maybe I watched one cold open and then got to that god awful opening scene or opening credits music
It's
and just
been
was like,
a long
nope.
road.
Oh man. But no, I thought they were good. Um, like I said, notwithstanding the whole faster than light travel combat thing, that was a little weird, and some of the overacting. But that was, I mean, for God's sakes, what Robert Ricardo, who played Khan? Ricardo
Ricardo,
Montalban.
yes.
Ricardo
I
Montalban,
mean,
yes.
obviously they didn't fix the genetically engineered overacting with these augments, so you know
I never
they
forget to face Mr. Chekhov. Yeah.
names I'm not
Maybe.
so good with.
We'll get to
Was
Mr.
that
Chekhov later.
a cracked magazine? Like, where did I remember this? Where did that come from?
Yep, it was not cracked. It was a Mad magazine. I bought the
Mad
Mad magazine
magazine.
Star Trek special.
Okay. Oh man, that's a deep cut. All right. But yeah, overall, I would say that was more enjoyable to sit down and watch. Now, it had the benefit of you picking 3 episodes, or really one, out of maybe 100.
Yes, yeah. I
So
mean,
there were probably some real downers along the way.
it had a
That
rough start out of the gates, but
Okay.
I do think it was kind of hitting its stride in season 4. So it's a little bit of a shame that, um, that it only made it 4 seasons. It might have gotten better. And I'll say this for Enterprise: most of the crew is pretty interesting.
Hmm.
There's different dynamics at play, and they feel like actual characters. In fact, and I'd be interested to get you guys' opinions, especially yours, Willie. I would say that through the 3 episodes that you watched, or the 6 if you watched both arcs, you probably got more characterization out of the crew of Enterprise than you did out of the crew of Discovery in 4 seasons.
Yeah, I would say that's probably fair because I didn't know any of these characters, but by the end of 3 episodes, I did kind of know them a little bit. Um, T'Pau's velveteen rabbit suit though was a little bit over the top. Um,
Uh,
but I
well, Willie,
thought
I know how you like cheese.
that's right. Uh,
That's a friend's joke.
but I will say that I yeah, I mean I liked. I didn't sit there and roll my eyes about much. Probably really the opening credits scene music was the main part, but no, I thought they were good.
I always liked Trip Tucker.
Hmm.
He, maybe it's because he's from Georgia or whatever.
Was he the See, that was the thing. I didn't know who was who.
He's the
Was T kind
engineer.
of like the engineer guy?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the chief.
There wasn't a big crew, but that's okay.
It's not a
No,
big
but
ship.
it's
Yeah, I was
exactly.
gonna say I did see. I didn't have all that backstory. I assumed that's what it was. It seemed like more like a space shuttle type mission than a Federation start. Big. Was it even the Federation?
No.
No,
So it's just
Earth
Earth.
Starfleet. Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay,
the I don't know if you watched the other 3 episodes I mentioned.
I did not.
They give Warden, you watched it,
I
right?
did.
Well, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it is I picked that arc because and the arc we're talking about is the one that starts with Babel 1 for the, people in the chat. It's a real seed planting birth of the Federation type arc. You get, I mean, obviously you've already got humans and Vulcans working together, which are 2 of the founding races, but it really shows. Warden, you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Well, and that was what I was a little confused about, was because there were other races. Obviously, the Vulcan, and then there was whatever the Doctor was.
Dr. Phlox.
Yeah,
Denobulans. Yes.
yeah, and so that was why It didn't seem like there was a Federation, but then I saw other races, and I thought, well, maybe, or different species. I'm sorry, D&D folks. Um, and
Whatever.
and so I didn't. I wasn't sure, but I didn't care enough to look it up because I was afraid I was going to get a spoiler or something. So
Yeah. Well, when you do watch if you do watch that second set of episodes that I recommended, then you'll get a little bit more information on them coming together. But yeah, this Enterprise is building towards the birth of the Federation.
okay,
This is the ship was put out by the Warp 4 Institute, I think. So it's like humanity trying to reach Warp
Yes.
4 or 5.
Hmm.
The first Warp 4 or 5 capable ship. And I mean, it's the NX-01, so it's the first one that's.
Hmm.
mm-hmm.
Um, so it really is a Wild West. So you get that kind of cowboy. Archer's more of a cowboy than
Even
Picard, and in some cases even more so
Kirk.
than Kirk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was this the arc that had Archer doing the Klingon, talking to the Klingons?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
I enjoyed that.
I thought it was good.
Don't catch any bugs.
Oh, 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 oh. All right. Well, good. I'm glad you guys enjoyed Borderlands and the whatever the other 2 were named.
One was what, like Cold Harbor or something, and
And I think the final
Cold
one was the
Station
Augments.
12.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was the name of the.
and then the Augments. Yeah, yeah, that was cool. I enjoyed those. I think they actually did a really good job of characterizing. I mean, you guys alluded to this, the Augments, and also characterizing Augments that weren't really raised as Augments, if that make well, they were, but they weren't like Khan was, you know, around a lot of them, and they were adults and that kind of thing. These were just basically just like roided out kids.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But they kind of, you could tell at one point they kind of looked to Khan as a prophet almost.
Yeah,
I won't say a god, but a larger than life, mythical figure.
right.
I thought it was cool that they talked about like looking for the Botany Bay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Neat little reference, little tie into Space Seed.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
See,
good.
I feel like that was a good episode of sandwiching in things to pull from canon, leave some little Easter eggs, but not just totally shit all over it like what Discovery does, or has done, or Picard.
I like how we say anything done well. We're like, so basically not what Discovery and
That's
Picard are
right.
doing.
That's right.
All right. Star Trek Enterprise. Borderlands, Cold Station 12, and Babel 1.
Mhm.
The next one was picked by Warden. This was a Voyager episode. So, Warden, why don't you tell us a little bit about it? First off, tell us why you picked it, and tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, so Year of Hell. Um, I mean, I picked it because in my mind it kind of encapsulates what Voyager does at its best. As far as like having that just completely out there compared to what I mean, because one of the things that they had an opportunity to do when they went to the um God, my brain is failing. Gamma?
Delta Quadrant.
Delta Quadrant, yeah. It was just like nowhere and nothing even remotely related to the Federation or any of the races we'd seen before. So they really had an opportunity for creativity, and I just love. I think even though there's some issues here with how it actually I thought it was a very creatively done time travel thought experiment, the time travel gone wrong kind of deal. And plus, I mean, it's just it might be just me, but I think Kate Mulgrew acts her ass off as far as playing Janeway as a captain who's dealing with a situation that's getting progressively more shitty. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
This is a strong Kate Mulgrew episode.
so yeah, that's kind of where yeah, those are my main reasons. I just and just it's a good mix of like quiet, thoughtful scenes with some neat action. So yeah.
Well, I had seen this before,
Mhm.
but Willie had not. So, Willie, I mean, do you want to kind of give us your impressions?
Yeah, I mean, again, this week kind of reminded me why I enjoy Star Trek. Well, Strange New Worlds did that too, but Voyager was another show that I saw maybe the first few seasons on, and then maybe our antenna got turned in a windstorm and we didn't get UPN anymore, so I didn't watch it. But uh, I remember not liking Voyager that much, and I was never a big Kate Mulgrew fan. I
Hmm.
found Janeway to be probably one of the least likable captains of all the seasons, right?
Misogynist.
Yeah, but but I enjoyed the episodes. One thing I thought that it did well, and to to Warden's point is, they got transported all the way across the known galaxy, right? And you would expect there to be different technologies and different evolutionary paths, and just things are going to be different over there, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know if this happened a lot during the show, but I thought that it was well done where they encountered basically a different type of weapon that they were practically defenseless against, right?
Mhm.
Hmm.
But every time they got hit with it, they learned a little bit more and a little bit more, and then eventually they figured out, how to shield against it, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, they were, crippled by the time they got there, right? Um,
And I will say, I really liked how this particular weapon tied into that particular species.
Yeah.
It
yeah,
was a it bypassed the shields by being slightly out of phase with normal space time.
yeah. Um, Other than the fact that I really wanted the captain of the alien ship to call Mulgrew a dumbass at some point.
I was gonna say that. I was so disappointed
I
Captain
was
Red
just
Foreman
waiting.
didn't tell Chakotay,
um,
son,
but
the reasons your calculations off is because you're a
because you're a
dumbass.
dumbass. It was that was another time I'm sitting there watching, and my wife was like, "Who is this guy? I know this guy." I was like, "He's the dad on that '70s show." She's like, "Why does he not look any older than when he was on that show?" I was like,
Because this
maybe
is when
this
he was
show was
off.
this was concurrent during that show. We looked it up, and in fact, it was like the same year,
Mhm.
basically. But anyway, it keeps throwing her off when we're jumping all around like this. By the way, she did not care for Scott Bakula. She was like, "This guy's terrible." I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "This guy, it's just a different feel, right?" But
Yeah.
anyway,
Mhm. I
but I
will
thought
say
it was
this, Captain Red Foreman, he would probably shit a brick if he watched Star Trek Picard season 2. Just careful calculations, making sure there were no deviations, no
hmm
permutations. He that's what it looks like when you're actually concerned about butterflies.
Yes.
yeah. Um, but again, since I didn't watch very much Voyager, I thought it was good. Like, I mean, the part where the doctor had to kind of, lock two people out, to their doom, right?
Mhm.
That was a good part. And then you obviously kind of had the Stockholm syndrome thing going on with the people that they took. Um, and I thought it was well done. I enjoyed those episodes. You kind of knew. I actually thought the episode was going to go in a different direction, where Captain Red Foreman realized that, like, he was the thread that he had to pull out of space time to get everything back to where it was. And I thought it was going to be like a noble sacrifice thing, but I was okay with the way it ended up anyway. When Janeway was just kind of like, "Damn the torpedoes,"
Yeah,
and that was what it took to to rectify it all. Although it didn't rectify it all, right? Because then you kind of went right back, and he's like, "Hey, I'm just trying to make a few more calculations." So
but his
you're
wife
kind
was there, and so he
you're kind of left with the did he or didn't he type situation. But I guess you have to assume that he didn't, because the people were a little bit more amenable to him passing through there at the end. But
Mhm.
um, it was funny seeing 7 of 9 and realize just how different. But I don't know. Maybe towards the end of Voyager, maybe her personality had gotten a little bit less robotic, but it was not real consistent with who the 7 of 9 was in Picard. Was that Was that kinda how it was?
Seven's kind of quest for to regain her humanity is a ongoing story thread throughout Voyager. And, no, she doesn't ever get, uh, to the point of the character that she is in Star Trek Picard, but then there's also a 20 year window in
Yeah.
between the two.
But it's to the point where you can assume that
You
the
see the
path she was
trajectory.
on.
You
Okay.
see the trajectory heading there. So
Yeah.
I didn't feel like it was jarring. I don't know. Maybe
Okay.
Warden feels differently, but
No, 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 no. I mean, where they take the character in Picard, for at least on that level, is very reasonable.
Okay.
at least on that level, I like that.
But yeah, no,
Um,
I mean, she really does. I mean, she comes. I have a love hate relationship with Seven, honestly, because of I don't have a whole lot of respect for why she came about. Um, Mainly because they wanted to sex up the show for teenagers, but um, at the same time, it's kind of like she does kind of sort of become the quasi Data for Voyager, and she kind of doubles up with the Doctor in that
I was going to
respect.
say there are some really good interactions between her and the Doctor
Hmm.
um, later on. The Doctor, by the way, becomes one of my favorite characters on
Hmm.
the show. Um,
yeah, I did like his interaction with Kate Mulgrew, where he's like, or with Captain Janeway, where he's like,
Hmm.
"I'm gonna relieve you of duty." And she's like, "Let me see you try." He says,
I was
"I'm
like,
I am gonna have to log this in my databanks." And she's like, "You know what? If we get home, I'll gladly face that court." I thought that was a good scene.
mhm.
Although I wonder now if that even happened. I guess it didn't.
Well, no, it didn't because the
No.
ship's not completely torn up. That year, the year of hell is erased. I mean, it's
Mhm.
their sort of disaster porn,
Yeah.
you know, um, but freebie disaster porn because they hit the reset button at the end. Um, I like it.
Mhm.
Just a comment on Voyager. I think for me, the characters in Voyager are more hit or miss than just about any other series. Like I don't universally love the crew of Voyager, and not only that, but even the ones that I do like have some like there are episodes where I don't really like Janeway. Um, I never warm up to Chakotay,
Mhm.
and this episode's the reason why I was like I thought he was a dunce. You know, Tom Paris gets better.
Mhm.
Um, you know, he is what he's supposed to be initially. You know, the hothead flunky. Might have even been. Was he a? Did they get him out of a penal colony?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, well, don't you remember he did the illegal maneuver with Wesley Crusher in TNG?
He did, but that was not the same
It
character.
was not the same character. He changed his name.
He changed his name to the Admiral's kid.
Yeah.
Um, really liked Balana. Really liked the Doctor by the end. Seven was okay. Harry Kim was. I didn't think it was that great a character, and he became a punchline of why he's always an ensign.
Yeah.
He got a couple good episodes, but for the most part, Voyager, I just found the crew hit or miss. Neelix is tolerable at times. Tuvok has a couple good episodes, but it can also be really bland, even for a Vulcan. Um, never liked Kess.
No. God.
Really didn't like Kess when she came back.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, because they were constantly traveling through space, headed home, you didn't get the stable of recurring guest characters. Like that's one of the things that I love about Deep Space Nine. Their recurring guest characters are so phenomenal.
Mhm.
Um, well,
And it
that's just a Voyager comment. Um, sorry, go ahead, Borden.
no, I mean yeah, and it's and you alluded to it, it's the structure of the show. Voyager, it's always moving, and there's moving in a way that it's never circling back.
Right.
Whereas, I mean, the DS9, it's one place, so it's a lot easier to have people come and go and whatever. But um, the one thing I will say about Voyager that got frustrating for me is that it kind of did actually stray from its mission toward the end because it got. I don't think this is a spoiler. I mean, it's the Delta Quadrant. It got very Borg heavy.
It did.
Um, which is, it just, I mean, yeah, it's a lot. But I mean, granted, they did some cool stuff with the Borg episodes and that kind of thing, but it was just, yeah. But I agree with you completely. I mean, I still think that as a group, the Voyager crew makes more sense than like the Discovery crew.
Well,
You at
yeah.
least
Yeah.
you at least know who everybody is and how they fit in, and yeah, they. I mean, but I mean, and maybe maybe the problem is that it's almost too well thought out because you're not going to have the ideal crew in that situation. It's gonna be catch as catch can, but I don't know. But yeah,
Did
I
they
like
pick up the did they pick up the Maquis before they got sent to the Delta Quadrant or after?
It basically happened at the same time. They were following a Maquis ship into the Badlands, and I don't remember if they picked them up and then got swept away, or they both got swept away and beamed them over because the Maquis ship was getting destroyed.
Okay.
But I mean, it happened in the first episode, and they were chasing them in the Alpha Quadrant.
Okay.
And,
yeah, I just
they don't play.
I don't remember loving Voyager when it came out, and that's probably one of the reasons that I never finished it. But now when I look at it a little bit less myopically, like I probably did when it came out, because I was a teenager, I feel like I can kind of see what they were trying to do, right? Like TNG just absolutely hammered it home with the episodic, ship just flying around doing what the Federation does, right? Like there was never really the mission of TNG was that it was it was the flagship of the Federation. They get sent on this diplomatic mission or that diplomatic mission or this, military engagement, right? And then Voyager came out, right? That was or no, DS9 came out, and they said, "Hey, let's do a stationary type Starfleet, situation, right?" So they put them on a. Now, granted, later in the season they got the Defiant, and then they did start venturing out, but it was still very pointedly designed missions, right? It wasn't. They weren't a starship just roaming the galaxy. It was all kind of anchored to a station, which was interesting, right? It created a little bit different dynamic. Then you had Voyager, which was the fish out of water trying to find its way home, Finding Nemo type, show. Again, I didn't know much about Enterprise, but now that I watched a little bit of it and we've kind of talked about it, I see they were trying to do something a little different there. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm more open to what they were trying to accomplish with Voyager and just create this us against the world um type feel to the show, right? And
it becomes easier to appreciate it for what it is.
right. Um and I guess it was better done that way. Essentially it's the same thing Discovery kind of did in that
Very
you
much.
had to you had to put them in a totally different realm to try and reinvent things, right? They went laterally and that they went location, right? And then Discovery went time, you know.
Eventually.
Yeah. And so it kind of, I guess
And that
since
made
they'd
it
already
all
done that,
better.
since they did that, Discovery had to go forward in time to try and do new stuff. But it made sense why you were all of a sudden seeing species that you'd never seen before and all that. That is one thing to me a little bit maybe that was uh I guess it's tough to do, and maybe Strange New Worlds is going to do a better job of this, but like it always kind of made me confused when you'd watch say an episode of uh Discovery, early Discovery, or Picard, um or Enterprise, and you see a species that you've never seen before, right? And it's kind of hard because you're painted into a little bit of a silo there where like you can't create a really interesting new race because then you're going to wonder why the
Where the
hell
hell
weren't
are these
they in
guys?
TNG and Voyager, DS9, like what happened there, right? So you're kind of stuck, you can't unless it's a species that gets totally wiped off because planted a bomb in the core of their Earth or core of their homeworld. Like you can't really create anything. Honestly, it was kind of the problem with the Star Wars prequels, right? Like you knew where you were going to be in 4, 5, and 6. You couldn't make anything too interesting because you knew you were going to have to just tear it all down to get to where you needed to be on episode 4. Which is why I thought 7, 8, 9 had better potential. And then, oh boy, did we fuck that up. But am I making any sense or am I just rambling now?
Bit of both. Bit of column A, bit of column B.
Yeah. So, like for instance, you know, Strange New Worlds is introducing some species that we've never seen before either, right?
Mhm.
Um, but so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that gets handled. But anyway,
Other than the discussion of the crew on Voyager actually kind of gets me thinking about um, has gotten me thinking about the comparison between Voyager and Discovery,
Mhm.
because I mentioned it before. They really both are shows that are driven by, even though they're ensemble casts, they're driven by a single character. There's a crew on Voyager, but that's very much Kate Mulgrew's show.
Mhm.
Her personality drives the show. And when it's and I can they share similar weaknesses in that regard, I guess is what I'm saying. And I guess the reason why, at least in my mind, that Voyager comes off somewhat a good bit better is they wrote better material for Mulgrew to work with.
That that's for sure. You think Mulgrew drives? You think her personality drives the show more than Cisco drove DS9?
Yes, I would say so.
Okay.
I mean, don't get me wrong, Cisco's a major presence on DS9, but um, there on DS9 there are so many textured and interesting characters.
That's true.
You could It would be a completely different show if you took Cisco out of the mix, but it would still be an interesting and good show. And that's whereas if you take um um Kate Mulgrew and take Janeway out of Voyager, it's like there's not a whole bunch there.
Well, like you said, because we do focus so much on the crew and there's no extras coming in.
Hmm.
Um, it and the crew is the hierarchy there is so rigid and structured.
Hmm.
Everything really does run through Janeway. There
Hmm.
aren't a lot of let's go off and do our own thing episodes because even those episodes, it's all still running through Janeway. So that's fair. Well, I enjoy that episode. It's a good DS9 episode for the reasons we talked about. I don't know that it's one of my favorites, but it's a fun one to watch.
Hmm.
So it's a good choice, Warden.
Oh well, thank you.
hmm you mean Void? You meant Void. You said DS9, but you meant
I'm sorry.
Voyager.
Yes, it's one of
Yeah,
my.
yeah.
It may not be one of my all-time favorite Voyager episodes, but it's in that top 10 to 15 range, I think. Okay, so moving on to our Deep Space Nine episode. So I picked this one, and I used it as a way to possibly also slide in a TOS episode. The Deep Space Nine episode I picked was Trials and Tribulations, and I suggested that it might be worth giving The Trouble with Tribbles a watch. So let me first ask, did you guys go back and watch Trouble with Tribbles?
I did.
Oh
Well,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
so I like that episode just because, I mean, A, it's iconic, but B, it reminds me how legitimately funny the original series could be. I mean, I laughed several times during that episode. Uh, it's silly, it's goofy, but some of the stuff is, to me, is really funny. Um, and the way that they mimicked that style in Trials and Tribulations
Hmm.
is perfect because I laugh at it a lot too. But
Hmm.
hmm
I mean, I, Morton, how do you feel about Trouble with Tribbles? First of all,
It's the original series at its best.
Mhm.
It's quite campy in a good way, and it shows the fun and I mean, it's not the best of the best, but there's a reason why it's kind of iconic. I mean, it's a really fun episode. It's not overly serious, but at the same time, I mean, there is a good kind of mystery story in there, like what's going on, and that kind of thing with the grain supply and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, this is the introduction of the Klingons.
Yes,
Um,
it is. And
s-
specifically, one Klingon we'll see many more times.
mhm.
Um, Koloth, right? Is it Koloth or Kor? They're the three Klingons,
Core, yeah.
the famous KKK of the
Olaf was
Klingons.
the captain, but you didn't see him, right? He was just referenced as being on the ship, as that being Olaf's ship.
No, that he's
No,
the one that was.
he's the one that's insulting the Enterprise. But
Oh, I didn't think that was Olaf. Okay.
Well, that was the guy insulting the Enterprise was the first off. Well, the equivalent of the first officer, isn't it? Or
Mm-hmm. That's what I
uh,
thought.
I okay, well,
but the
my fault.
the Klingon captain is the one you see that's always verbally fencing with Kirk. So
Oh, that's right. Leaves
Yes,
into
sorry.
the station master's office and all that
mhm.
stuff.
Um, Willie, another reason that I wanted you to watch this episode was because if only they had had a tribble around Ash Tyler, maybe they could have learned of the deception earlier.
If only.
Because
If only. So,
and the
uh,
tricorder, but the tricorder could tell the difference. So apparently they didn't go to the matriarch clan that was the weavers and deceivers of lies to alter this guy.
uh,
Jim, this man's
um,
Klingon.
yeah, that was, but so I went back and watched Trouble with Tribbles because I didn't watch a whole lot of TOS because at some point it was too old to watch just to watch it, right? Um, so speaking on the TOS episode to start with, like it very much reminded you that Star Trek TOS was a space opera with sci-fi as the backdrop, right?
Hmm.
Because it was definitely just more of a theatrical episode, right? I mean,
Mhm.
Kirk was Kirk, right? But like you said, it kind of had a little bit of sci-fi as a backdrop. Like there was some kind of agreement where they were equally going to start to colonize this planet, and then whoever showed that they could be more efficient with the resources and what they had, they were going to basically win out. So there was Klingon, you know, subterfuge going on, whatever you want to call it, sabotage. Um, but and Kirk kind of being like, "Why the fuck am I here? Like this is
Kirk's
ridiculous."
Kirk's
you know,
dealing with the bureaucrat is one
yeah,
of the best parts of the
right.
episode, I
Yeah.
think.
You could just tell he thought it was preposterous that the Enterprise had to be there for this. And I
Swarms
mean,
of
he was
Klingons.
vocal about it, right?
I wasn't
Yeah,
aware that 12 Klingons constitutes a swarm.
yeah. I suppose two guards, but um, so but it was a good episode. I enjoyed it. But like the peddler, I mean, he was very over the top, right? It was almost like slapstick humor a few times, and then
Yes.
you know, and then of course, Chekhov was obviously a running gag back in the '60s as this Soviet nincompoop that just had been brainwashed to think the Soviet Union had created everything, right?
Mhm.
Um, That
I
didn't age
remember
very
him getting
well.
better later on, but I don't know if it's the movies that's bleeding into that.
Well,
I don't remember him being such a caricature the
see,
whole
I went back and
TOS.
looked though. I mean, this was only like the 5th episode he was in.
Mhm.
He was just
Right.
introduced in that season and was
Right.
only a few episodes in, but I thought it was hilarious that Scotty like is the voice of reason until
I
they insulted the
I
Enterprise.
I love that part that he's like,
And then he went, drunk Scotsman on
"Eh,
him. Um,
everyone's got an opinion. Settle down now, laddie."
um, but no, I thought I thought the Trouble with Tribbles, the TOS episode, was really good. I had fun watching it. Um,
So that provided the backdrop for the DS9 episode, one one that I really like,
yeah.
Trials and Tribulations. I like it because I picked it because it's a fun DS9 episode. It's different. I think it's ambitious, and I think they pull it off just
Mhm.
with flying colors. So I I guess Willie, you want to keep talking. You want to talk about how you felt about trials and tribulations.
Um, yeah, I mean, so this was another episode that I had not seen. DS9 was another show where I watched the first few seasons and then maybe spot checked a few episodes here and there, but this was an episode that I had not seen. And I had a lot of fun with it. Honestly, the whole episode was worth Worf's explanation of why the Klingons look different. I mean, that was perfect.
Wait, those are Klingons?
I mean, I was hanging on the edge of my seat, and then when that was the explanation. I was like, that was perfect because nothing you could have done would have sufficed. Like that was the only way you could address it.
If it had been Discovery, they'd have tried to like put in some cockamamie bullshit
Right.
excuse.
We experimented with genetic augmentation and it went terribly wrong, or some stupid bullshit like that. Right.
Well, that's
The
actually
Warriors used to
never been
grind
an explanation.
their ridges down or something, and Worf is like, "We do not speak. It
Of
is a
it, they're
long story.
outsiders.
We do not speak of it to outsiders." Whatever.
But yeah, that was great. Um, the way they wove them in to actual scenes, it made it feel like kind of a clip show, but not a clip show.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Um,
Feels it's like Forrest
a-
Gump on overdrive.
well, and I loved how even the cast and crew of DS9 just totally got in sync with the cheesy acting and everything of TOS, right?
Mhm.
Like the bar scene fight, and all that. Like they just, they totally they acted their ass off. I felt like they like it. You couldn't tell where DS9 started and TOS ended, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Um,
On every
when
level. I mean, uh, lighting and even
Mhm.
the film grain that they used. I mean,
Yeah.
it
hmm um, but no, I thought it was great. I thought it was well done where it wasn't. It was the time cops who showed up and were talking to Cisco. Like this was his retelling of the story. Um, and the time cops were, total dicks to start with, right? And
like,
and
oh, his ship.
yeah, and then in the end, it was they're like, I don't think there's any harm done. Um, Jadzia or Dax, I guess, probably what people more commonly monikered.
Mm,
But
well, no, Jadzia is right because there are multiple Dax
That's
hosts.
true. That's true. She
It-
made some little funny one-offs, like she was just like a sorority girl. Although she actually said that.
and
Um,
gymnast
yeah,
when she was Emory when she was at Ole Miss,
at
the
Ole
gymnast.
Miss, yeah,
Yeah.
he had surgeon's hands, but
He's
no,
so much
I,
more
I
handsome than
thought it.
I thought he
I,
would be. Or no, she's so much more handsome in person. Well, Kirk
Um,
was a ladies' man. No, I'm talking about Spock.
um, but yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was done as well as when Strange New Worlds did it.
Yeah.
Um, enjoyed it, had fun watching it. Remembered how much I actually really liked the crew of DS9, right? Like
Mhm.
Bashir freaking out if he was actually supposed to be his own grandfather or whatever. Like that was cracking me up.
That's a
And then
Futurama storyline.
yep, that was Futurama. And then O'Brien was just kind of like egging him on, like just being like a total ass, right? Um, and then they got on there. They didn't know how to work the technology. Like they couldn't figure out the term. Computer, hello, computer. Um, because what the hell? I mean, I agree with him. What the hell sense did it make to go in and have to hold that thing? That must have been an actual technology thing of the '60s. I'm guessing. Like you had to get in, like hold on to something to make it run because that was bizarre. I don't remember that from the episodes of TOS I've seen that they had to do that. But
No, but they have to do it on the Strange New Worlds.
Mhm.
oh, did they? I guess I hadn't even really picked up on it because I didn't know that was a thing. But
Do you
um,
remember the episode where Una and Lon were playing Enterprise Bingo,
yes.
and they did like the quick draw where one of them said bridge and one of them said engineering, and they tried to grab the handle, see who could grab it faster.
Oh, well, I remember that now. But again, I didn't. It didn't click. Right, didn't register. But
I liked it
um,
when Bashir was telling them, you're wearing the wrong colors. They're like, no, no, no. Back then, operations were gold, engineering were red, and Dax comes out and she's like, and the ladies wore less.
yeah, that was
Ah, I
good.
miss the '60s.
That was good. And then, aren't you using a medical track order? Yes, yes. He's not well. He's had some PTSD. We're just kind of looking over him. I love Bashir's like $5 haircut.
Yeah, I know.
That cracked me up. Um,
I like it when the nurse is like, your flap's open. He's like, yep. What? Your tricorder. You'll drain the battery.
yeah, no, I thought it was great. That was fun.
And the little and Dax calculating the triple exponential growth the same way that Spock does.
Yeah.
Yep, spot
And
on.
then when they're in there and they're scanning the triples and like tossing it over the shoulder, and it's like hitting Kirk in the
Hitting
head.
Kirk in the head.
Oh goodness! Before I keep talking about this, Warden. So yeah, so I picked this episode, but
Mhm.
you had seen it before.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully, it's one that you like.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, you guys have already kind of said it. I mean, the way they weave the quote modern stuff into the original series episode so seamlessly is just amazing. I mean, I mean the portion of the episode that I mean sells it more than anything, honestly, is for me is the end when Cisco's talking to Kirk, and it's just so it works really well. We'll
Mhm.
put it that way. I mean, they part of it's they didn't try to get too ambitious with it.
I thought he was gonna bring that document back to the future with him and like frame it. That's where I thought that was going.
Well,
But
they brought something even worse back. They brought the tribbles
yeah,
back
they
from
did. They brought
extinction.
the tribbles.
Uh,
I also just all the I mean and sorry, I was watching audio levels and stuff. You might have talked about it already, but the whole conversation about the Great Tribble Hunt and
yeah.
yeah.
and the
Yeah.
whole it's just
And they're
fantastic.
mocking him like, boy, this is a story you don't really hear the Klingons tell. That was good.
And here's the thing: Deep Space Nine needed this occasional goddamn episode where they didn't take everything too seriously. because it got heavy at times, and it made me love these Deep Space Nine ship in a bottle, don't take ourselves too seriously episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, more than more than on TNG where everything was always kind of on a chill level. It was unusual. It was or not unusual, but it was the outlier for TNG to go really heavy and dark.
Mm-hmm.
Deep Space Nine, it was more the norm. So uh, these lighthearted episodes are to me gems.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's my favorite one of these. It's close. It may be tied for the top. But there's another
Favorite
one that
being ship in a bottle, or ones where they went back and like.
favorite being just a lighthearted ship in a
Okay.
bottle episode. One that doesn't take itself too seriously. There's another one that I really like that hopefully we'll get to, but anyway. Yeah. Deep Space Nine, Trials and Tribulations. Really fun episode. Um, I thought we had 3 good episodes to watch.
Mm-hmm.
We came from 3 different series. We had one that was fairly heavy, one that was thought provoking, and one that was more lighthearted. And it gave us a bonus episode, bonus TOS episode. That's a classic. So,
Yeah.
all right.
And I mean, and honestly, like, shame on me for never having watched The Trouble with Tribbles, because it is iconic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't Google the original series and one of the top 3 hits not be a picture of Kirk with all the tribbles like buried around him, right? Um, I
Little known
definitely should have
fact:
watched it.
the script was actually written in Russia.
Oh, laddie. But
All
yeah,
right.
it was
Well,
great.
let me toss this to Ward. So we're not going to do good, bad, and hubris because I think these are 3 great episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had to pick a favorite out of these 3, and I get if you want to throw in Trouble with Tribbles, we can say these 4.
Huh. Well, um, I'm thinking, I I'm gonna go with Trials and Tribulations just because of the execution level of what they set out to do, and they hit it pretty damn well. Of these 3, yeah, I think that one. I mean, I'm a sucker for an upbeat, happy, funny episode that's not cringe. Um,
All right, that's a good choice. You can't go wrong with any of these 3.
right.
Any of these 4. Excuse me, Willie. Which of these was your favorite?
So I'd like to give it to Trials and Tribulations, but I think that it's just the familiarity bias, because that's the crew that I'm most familiar with. So I was probably the most comfortable watching that one, but um, they were all great episodes. But I think I'm gonna give it the crown to TOS, because you got to give a nod to where it started from. And when you talk about an episode not taking itself too seriously, but executing it well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm watching this thing 60 years later and enjoyed it and thought it was a good episode that was silly, but had a decent backdrop as sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like I said, 60 years later, it's still a good episode.
Mm,
So I'm gonna have to give it to TOS, and I don't want that to seem like a cop out because it's the original series Star Trek. I do feel like it was a good episode probably in the 60s, and I felt like it was a good episode in 2023, you
mm-hmm.
know? So, There's mine.
This is a tough
But
call for
but
me.
but I do think they were. I thought they were all good. I guess if we were going strict canon or plugging in the gaps for somebody like me, I would give it to Enterprise because I thought they did a really good job with that. But yeah, it was a tough call between Enterprise and TOS. But I'm gonna give a nod to the original.
I'm. This is hard for me because these are four good episodes. Um, if I were just going to rewatch one of them, you know, well, first of all, I could probably watch any of these if I came across them. You know,
Just
if
like
we
on
were
TV.
theoretically surfing channels anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But trials and tribulations, I will watch anytime. I got no problem going and looking that one up and watching it. It is the most fun to me. TOS, the original triples is probably the second most fun. I do think Willie's right in that the Enterprise episodes are really good at filling in the gap. It's kind of sort of some essential history. And even though Voyager doesn't technically doesn't happen in the end, it gets undone. I think it's a really important episode for Voyager because what it does is it's a crucible episode where you put these characters through the fire and strip them down to really,
Mm-hmm.
show the audience what they're made of. And even though it doesn't happen in the end, the characterization is real, and you get
Yeah.
to see what these characters are like at their core when pushed to the extreme. One of the things that we didn't mention that I really liked was Tuvok being blinded, but
Mm-hmm.
and having to be led around, but still like doing his duty through everything. And
Yeah. Well, and that thread also greatly humanizes Seven
Mhm.
because her obvious regret about the fact that he was injured and blinded from saving her is it's interesting, and it takes her character, even though, like you said, it doesn't actually happen. It gives the viewers an opportunity to see, okay, so there is this thread of this non-robotic stuff there. So yeah, sorry, didn't
and
mean to jump on your point, but I
no,
just
no, no. I'm glad you jumped in. And I mean, you even get to see like that there's potential in Neelix, like in a dire situation
Mhm,
to do something other than just be the cook and the kind of the goofy side character.
mhm.
He's obviously he's always going to be goofy, but he's still he becomes a. I don't want to say he wasn't a valued member of the crew before, but he becomes an actual member of the crew.
Mhm.
So I think I'm going to pick Year of Hell for my choice this week. It's the top.
Okay, cool.
Well, that's three different choices.
Mhm.
That's a rarity here on Sheer Fucking Hubris. Well, so um, next week I think Warden gets to pick two episodes because I
Yep.
picked episodes. Do you know what do you know what you're going to go with yet?
Yeah, I do. Um, so in in this case, there are no multi-part episodes for me. Um, so the first episode we're gonna do is it's another DS9 episode. It's in the exact opposite as far as uh, being, whether it's light or not. And but it is definitely, it's a standalone. We're gonna do The Visitor.
Ah, okay.
Um, it is unique. Um, and it's a uniquely strong guest performance on a series that had very strong guest performances.
From
Um,
a performer who makes other appearances
mhm,
as a guest, but never as
yes,
this character. Correct. This is the only time he plays
that is correct.
this character.
Yes. Um,
So, Willie, see if you can figure out where you know him from within Star Trek.
Okay.
All right, the Visitor from Deep Space Nine.
and then the second one I have picked is a little lighter, but everything from the original series is a little lighter. Almost everything. And so we're gonna watch Amok Time.
It's been
Is
so long since I don't know that I've seen that one all the way through. It's one
hmm
of those that was always on like the Star Trek marathons
hmm
back when TV marathons were. You guys remember TV marathons?
I
hmm
do.
God damn, y'all are old. I don't remember 'em.
Well, we both just had
I was
birthdays.
thinking the other day. I was thinking the other day. Do you remember like 21 Days of 007?
Yes,
That was
on TBS.
amazing. Yes, and they showed a different Bond movie every night for 3 straight weeks,
Oh
and
my
we sat
god,
there and watched
yeah.
every one of them. Oh man, those were the good old days.
All right, so the Visitor and Amok Time. Willie, do
Yes.
you want a DS9 or a Voyager episode?
Let's go Voyager.
Voyager. Okay. I'm gonna go with um it is completely self-contained, and it's pretty lighthearted. I think it's a fun little sci-fi short story, basically. Uh Season 6, episode 12. It's called Blink of an Eye.
hmm
So Blink of an Eye from Voyager, The Visitor from DS9,
Yeah, that's
and
season
Amok
4.
Time, TOS.
That's season 2, episode 5.
Okay.
Yeah, Blink of an Eye is cool. That's a good one.
I I'm glad that Warden approves because uh, it's good. Yeah, I really enjoy this this weekly format. I really
Well,
want to get into Strange New Worlds and Picard season 3, but
Mhm.
I can do this a few more weeks.
well, I was gonna say our Patreon subscribers, I'm sure, are gonna want to know when we're gonna get back into Strange New Worlds and Picard.
Well, and and we've had some side conversations about this. I don't know that we don't necessarily like assign a third episode like this one, both as protection against, weeks when both are rough, though I doubt at least that Strange, knock on wood, I think that Strange New Worlds is at least going to be decent
Yeah,
moving
Yeah.
forward. Um, but I mean, and the other thing is there's a lot of both of the seasons of television for their own reasons have potential for some heavy duty referencing the past.
hmm
So it might be useful, interesting for us to have this third episode that we can throw in there. Then, like, hey, if you want to know more, let's dive into this. So, I mean, we can talk about that more. But I thought that would be an interesting. I like the idea of pulling some of this, more of this classic Trek in just for fun. And
Yeah.
I agree. All right. Well, we'll be back next week with the Visitor, Amok Time, and Blink of an Eye. Warden, take us home.
okay, this is Joe Bob, Biblio Warden, and Mr. Willie signing off.